Yeah, so cookware power intro. Would you want this as an upsell, or do you just want me to like imagine somebody's like, oh, you have pans?
Upsell.
Upsell?
Yeah, I also want to hear the other version too.
Okay. Yeah, so let's say we're doing an upsell. It's not that much different, honestly. It's just like something along the lines of, cool, so did you know that Cutco had forever pots and pans as well? And they'll say, yes, no, no. Okay, cool. Have you guys ever thought about maybe upgrading your guys' like pots and pans? Like,
Maybe.
okay, cool. Do you know what kind of pots and pans you guys currently have? What brand you've got?
I don't know the brand. We got it when we got married.
Okay, cool. Like, so how long is that?
Like 5 years now.
5 years, yeah. Cool. So a lot of people, they know us for the knives, right? And again, I know you guys are getting your knife set today and you're going to love them. So just, you know, for future reference down the road with the Cutco pots and pans, they're the most important product that we sell. So they're kind of cool though, because everybody sees stainless and they're always like, oh, yeah. Stainless. Like I kind of joke that most people have PTSD from stainless steel because everything always sticks and burns to stainless steel, right? So the cool thing about our pots and pans is they have the same benefit of a non-stick pan without any of like the toxic chemical coatings on them, right? So have you guys ever cooked with stainless?
Not really. Just
okay,
like cast iron,
because you know what usually happens when you cook with stainless. It kind of sticks,
yeah.
right? So the reason why everything sticks and burns to stainless is something that I found out recently. So the cool thing about the Cutco pots and pans, we use a surgical grade stainless steel on the top of our pans and the bottom of our pans, and then we have 3 layers of aluminum at the core. So I know that means nothing to you, but basically what your pans do at home right now is they cook from the bottom up, okay? So the cool thing about our pots and pans, and I take out my either cookware binder or the cookware like guide, and I open up the picture to show them the diagram where I'm like, the cool thing about our pots and pans is they cook from the bottom and the sides and the top all at the same time. So for example, the reason why most things with stainless steel stick and burn is that most stainless steel is cooking with an 18.6, 18.8, or 18.10 grade stainless, which microscopically is actually porous. So the reason why things are actually sticking to stainless steel that you've used in the past is not because of the stainless steel. It's the leftover food particles that have got into the stainless that now the other food you're putting into the pan is getting stuck to the food that's still in the pan. So eventually that's why you always have to get rid of your stainless steel, because you can't clean that, right? So we use a surgical grade stainless steel. So for example, do you guys make eggs?
Yeah.
Okay, I love eggs. I call myself an alcoholic. So everybody's like, all right, well, when you make eggs, things are always going to stick and burn. Okay, so, okay, my first question for you, Calvin, is like, have you ever put a steak on a grill?
Yeah.
Would you ever put a cold steak on a cold grill?
No.
No, why?
Because it's going to stick.
It's going to stick,
yeah.
Right? Same thing why you'd never put a cold pizza into a cold oven. You just would have no idea how long it's actually going to take.
Right.
You're also not going to know like when you're supposed to take it out. Same thing with a steak, it's just not going to cook evenly. So the only thing that you're going to do different than with our pots and pans and your pots and pans at homes is all you're going to do is preheat them for about 60 to 90 seconds. Do you cook on gas or electric?
Gas.
Gas is great because it's consistent. So for example, right, with our pans, right, I'm going to flick a little bit of water into the pan.
Wait, what if I said electric?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I say electric's great. It just takes a little bit longer to heat up. That's all. Right. So with our pots and pans, all I do is make sure our pan is hot enough. Right. So the trick with our pots and pans is right now with you said you've cooked with some nonstick stuff. Everybody like been conditioned like our whole lives that you can just put a nonstick pan on the stovetop, you put butter in, and then you turn the stove on, and then it melts, and then nothing sticks. Just so you know, it's completely not natural for you to be able to throw in like eggs into a fry pan without butter and oil and then have it just slide out of the pan. We've been sold this bill of goods that's totally fine. In no world is that totally fine, because you can imagine what they've had to put on that pan for that thing to just slide out of the pan, right? So there's a lot of peace of mind with our pots and pans that what you put into the pan is what you get out of the pan, right? So for example, the only thing you'll do different is you're going to preheat it. Basically what you're looking for is the water to literally start to dance. Once it starts to bounce, it's bouncing for butter, right? So I like butter way more than I probably should. So I'll put my butter in there. Make sure you have sound playing. Sound's important, right? So what I love is once you put your butter in there, wait 5 or 10 seconds, throw your eggs in there, right? Now my favorite thing about the pots and pans is you can actually use metal utensils with our pans, because if you scratch anything, it's just cosmetic, right? So once you flip it, you will literally get the thing. You'll get the omelet that just does the thing. It just kind of slides out of the pan and nothing gets stuck, okay? Do you guys ever do over easy eggs or sunny side up, right? I love sunny side up eggs, right? So for example, same exact thing with an over easy egg, right? Now, I'm not going to sell you this bill of goods that everything that you cook in your pans is not going to stick or burn. Okay, you're a human being, and it's ironic that we buy non-stick pans, and guess what still happens to non-stick pans? Things still get stuck, right? The most frustrating thing about non-stick pans, though, is that you can't just scrape it off. You got to let it soak for like an hour just to take the food off. So my favorite thing about the cooker pots and pans is how easy they are to clean. So for example, do you guys ever do bacon?
Yeah.
Okay, bacon always burns. Okay, it doesn't matter what kind of pan you're going to cook in, unless you're doing this in the oven, right? Bacon always burns, right? So let's say you're making a skillet. The cool thing about our pots and pans, by the way, is the bacon that's sitting on the side of the skillet and the bottom of the skillet is cooking at the exact same temperature throughout the whole entire pan. So for example, your bacon will always cook evenly. Okay, so for example though, bacon will always look like this after you're done with it, right? It's always going to be, it's going to look like a mess, right? My favorite thing about it is it's super easy to clean. So I just let water do the work for me. I'll take water, pour it into a hot pan, and it does not warp, right? And I just sit it on low for 4 or 5 minutes, and then I just scrape it away with one of the metal utensils. It comes right off. I just use a regular sponge, scrubber, whatever you want to use. This is a buddy's pan that he's been using for like 10, 15 years, and it literally looks like that after cleaning it. It's crazy, right? Same thing with eggs, right? Let's say you're doing a bunch of eggs, right? And this happens, you didn't preheat the pan long enough or whatever. You're doing scrambled eggs and they just stick. Because welcome to being a human. Sometimes you're making 12 eggs, you did 6 one time, and you didn't put enough butter in the next time. Things stick and burn. To clean them, literally just pour some water in the pan, let the water work. That's it, right? Same thing, you can use a paper towel to clean them like my buddy does here, or you can just use a scrubber. It doesn't matter. Super easy to use and it's easy to clean, and you don't have to wait around for an hour for your pans to just like soak. Okay, now the coolest thing about our pots and pans, though, Mrs. Jones, is not just how you can make eggs without them sticking and burning. Do you guys ever make vegetables?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so have you ever asked yourself why you boil or steam vegetables?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Why? No, I asked myself why.
Yeah, why do you? Why? You've never thought about it, right? Nobody. And by the way, everybody's like, yeah, I'd really never thought about that, right? Do you know what happens when we boil and steam foods?
No.
Right. Basically, the process of boiling and steaming foods, all it does is just makes our food a little softer and a little bit more enjoyable to eat, right? The process, though, of boiling and steaming our foods, we're losing flavor, specifically. We're also losing a lot of the nutrients. So a lot of that stuff just kind of gets lost into the water. And then the water, where does the water go?
Down the drain.
Down the drain. So the healthiest part of the kitchen is the kitchen sink, right? That's kind of funny. But the idea, so for example, I was growing up, I remember my mom would make carrots and broccoli, and she would always do carrots and broccoli, 2 separate saucepans, boil and steaming them, doing the same thing, 2 different saucepans, right? Because if you put them in the same pan, in a normal pot and pan, right, it would just taste like broccoli. It'd be like this vegetable medley, right? It wouldn't taste very good. Also, right, if you put them in the same pan, right, the flavors would mix and it just doesn't taste great. So the cool thing about our pots and pans, let's say you wanted to make like broccoli and carrots in like our 1-quart saucepan, right? The reason why you're also boiling and steaming foods is if you're boiling and steaming foods, if you don't boil and steam foods in like a non-stick black pan, everything will burn. Everything will burn, right? Because again, you're losing all the moisture. The moisture is leaving and it's just gonna stick to the bottom of the pan. So what's cool about our pan, you could take our 1-quart saucepan, and I bring over the 1-quart saucepan, and I'll take it and I'll go, cool. So for example, I could take carrots, rinse it off, put it on this side of the pan. I could take broccoli, rinse it off, put it on this side of the pan, and I just won't peek for 8 to 12 minutes. Keep in mind, medium to low heat. The only temperature you will ever use with our pans is medium to low. Medium to low is all you need to know. The only time you will ever use high heat is if you're literally boiling water. Even when you're searing a steak, I just use medium heat, right? So, for example, I want you to pick this lid up for me real quick, Bailey. So you'll notice how nothing happens, right? It just pops right up. Okay, now if I were to take a little bit of water, and I were to pour this into the pan, right? Pour a little bit of water in here, right? Now, I'm going to give you the effect if we were cooking, right? When we start to cook, all the juices and the moisture wants to leave the foods, okay? So what's wild about our pans is I'll give this a little shake to get that moisture going. If I were to literally if I were to twist this lid now, you'll literally notice how it literally starts to float on the pan. So if you gently pick the lid up now, notice how it literally gets stuck. So that's all of the good stuff that you're trying to get from your food, specifically the flavor, but also the nutrients, literally locking itself into the pan, right? So for example, grab off the Dutch oven. So for example, you could do an 8 to 12 pound chuck roast in this Dutch oven in 45 to 55 minutes on medium to low heat. It will create that same vapor seal, and you'll never even need to put it in the oven, right? In 45 to 55 minutes. right? So these pans are so efficient. Your pans right now at home, by the way, are about 30 to 40% efficient. So the reason why we cook on high heat so often is because if you're not cooking on high heat, it feels like you're taking forever to cook, right? So the cool thing about our pans is they're 98% efficient. So what that means is you're conducting heat so evenly throughout your pans, you just get done with your food faster. I kind of joke with my customers. We all go get fast food, right? But by the time you get into the line to the drive-thru and by the time you get home and you actually eat your food, it takes an hour, right? And the reason why we go get fast food is because most people, it just takes forever to cook in their own kitchen. So what I love is I could take our small utility pan. It's a small skillet, Mrs. Jones. If you're just cooking for you and your wife, and you wanted to make a couple chicken breasts and some carrots and maybe some cinnamon apples on top, you could literally do a 3-course meal for 2 people in 18 minutes in this pan. No butter, no oil, no water. And it tastes delicious, right? So there's basically 3 main sets that we basically sell here at the fair. So do you want me to keep going?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. That's the power intro, basically. It's again, it's not really a power intro. That's like essentially the
That's a pitch.
it's a pitch, right? But it's like all you're asking, especially with an upsell, it's just like you're just asking a couple of questions that are like, cool, have you ever thought about upgrading your pots and pans, right? And like the upserve question that I usually ask to just let them maybe be open to hearing what I have to say is it's super non-committal, and I'll say something along the lines of like, have you guys ever thought like with the next like 3 to 5 years, you guys might think about like upgrading your guys' pots and pans at home? And they're like, yeah, I mean, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we probably maybe down the road. I'm like, yeah, so just so you know, for the future. And that gives me the window to actually pitch them, right? And again, using the line of like, yeah, it has the same benefit of a nonstick pan without the toxic chemical coatings, right? Everybody has PTSD with cooking with stainless steel. And then just showing people how to make an egg without it sticking super quick. Yeah. If you can do that fast, people are bought in. Because everybody that has cooked with stainless steel in the past, you need to pop the fear bubble that they have, which is specifically frying eggs or putting eggs in a stainless steel pan just burns, right? So if you can pop that fear bubble, everything else that you have to say after the fact, they will be bought into, whether they buy it or not today. Now, there's also power and like when you're pitching the pieces. So I would highly recommend, Coco and I did this like a couple weeks ago, we made marshmallow Rice Krispie treats in the wok. And it is fucking awesome. So we preheated the wok, we did the thing, put butter all around the wok, right? See how crazy, Mrs. Jones? Like literally the butter is hot at every single part of the pan. It just melts. It's amazing. Okay, then you put your butter in there, and then you put your marshmallows in there, right? Start doing the thing. Because it's so wide, right? You don't have to worry about literally putting your marshmallows in the microwave, right? And then you melt down your marshmallows. It literally took like 5 minutes to melt down the marshmallows. It was crazy, right? And then you start mixing them around, and they're freaking delicious, right? And they're so easy to clean because I just put a little bit of water into the pan and just gave it a nice scrub, and all the marshmallow just came right off the pan, right? So it's like if you can.
How long did that take?
8 minutes, and I'm not even joking. It was so fast. It was crazy. The longest thing that took was like 2.5 minutes to probably preheat the wok because it's just a fucking huge pan, right? That's it. But like having like a Luke Mills example of like having like stir frying chicken in there. Next week when Coco comes up, we're gonna see how many like pounds of ground beef we can put in there, because I've been saying about 4 to 6 pounds of ground beef is probably the number that you can do, because you can do like 3 pounds of ground beef in the skillet, but it's a pretty tight fit. But like when you think about the circumference of the wok, it's 14 inches wide and it's 4 inches deep, almost, right? So it's almost twice the surface area as far as depth wise goes in comparison to a skillet. So it's like pitching the idea, like again, the reason why I've sold more cookware this year is because I am better at selling the legacy cookware set, because I'm using real examples with the 10-quart stock pot makes sense, but it's like hitting pain points with the griddle where it's like everybody's got a griddle. But the biggest problem that everybody has with the griddle is it cooks in the freaking middle of the damn pan. That's it. And it's like, Mrs. Jones, have you ever cooked with cast iron? Right? And they say, yes, I've cooked with cast iron. Isn't it funny, though, how when you cook with cast iron, the only thing that gets hot is the thing that's directly on top of the burner of a cast iron? Like, everything else doesn't really cook the same exact way. It still sears, but it doesn't sear the same way that's directly on top of the burner. With the Coco pans, it's just the whole damn thing. So when you're doing pancakes, you can literally do 4 pancakes. You can literally do 4 grilled cheeses. You can literally do 4 French toasts. So it's so much more efficient, right? And when you're creating, and when you're doing French toast, when you're doing pancakes, usually you're doing like 12 to 20 of them. So the point is like, how can you get in and out of the kitchen faster? And you can do that with pans that actually cook well, right? So like with the wok, it's like, yeah, I use it as the last piece because it's so it's like, I call it the entertainer pan. It's like whenever you're entertaining Mrs. Jones, this is the pan you have to have. Like, you just have to have it. Like when you have 6 people over, you just need to have this pan. Like, this is the pan that's going to do everything. And once you get rid of, again, the idea that it's not just for the, again, stir fries and the paellas. Once you realize that this is for everything, then it's like, oh yeah, I actually do need that, right? And then I think the other thing, just to kind of put a bow on this, right? And there's a few other things that I do that I can talk more about, but to put a bow on it, it's like when you're price comparing, I don't use KitchenCraft price comparison because Cutco sent an email to stop using KitchenCraft because KitchenCraft called Cutco, said stop using our price comparison. So I just use Saladmaster. That's all I use. And I don't talk about their $10,000 option. That's usually 18 grand. That's 10 grand because it's got bakeware. So it's not comparable to what we're talking about. So what I'm like is the biggest set that they sell in comparison to our big set is this one, and theirs is on sale for $6,300. And I say, so what's interesting about the Cutco pots and pans, Mrs. Jones, is like if you were to go to this fair, you're going to literally run into 6 of them, count them, 6 other stainless steel cookware brands, right? And it's ironic because they're literally all made in the same exact factories as Cutco's, right? They're all made in West Bend, Wisconsin, and they're all amazing. The difference between me and the difference between the Saladmaster cookware guy that's over on aisle 300 or wherever he is, right, is he does not get the luxury of selling Cutco knives. I get the luxury of selling Cutco knives, and I, as a Cutco salesperson, get full commission when I sell Cutco knives. I, however, do not get full commission when I sell Cutco pots and pans. It's ironic. It's my favorite thing to sell, but I make the least amount of money when I sell them. So the only difference between me and him and the prices is you get the same quality with a better guarantee, because we're the only one that's at our guaranteed forever, right? But our pans are the same quality, same dishwasher safe, best guarantee in the world, and literally you guys just get a better deal as a customer because I make less selling them to you. So for example, this set that's $6,300 from them, our set is $5,384. So it is $900 less just because I get paid less. And every customer's like, sweet, right? Now, I'll die on this sword. It is so much easier to sell a legacy cookware set to a person that is relatively in the market for new pots and pans than it is to sell an ultimate. And it's just because the pans, it just makes sense. Like, that's just not a lot of pans at the end of the day. It's just not. Like, 3 size fry pans, 3 size saucepans, 3 size skillets, few accessories, and 3 big family pans. It's just not that many pans, right? And if you got a family of 5, you're going to use half of those every fucking day, right? So it's like, in the emotional purchase of, like, again, saying like, yes, like what you put into the pan is what you get out, right? The thing that Kareem talks about too is like, you get prices out. If you guys are talking about stack cooking early, stop doing that. Stack cooking should be the penny, right? So we know how we've tried to transition into using the penny after we've showed prices, after we're figuring out the set. It's like, yeah, so explaining the 3 sets, talking sexy about the big pieces, handing them the big pieces, having them feel them, and just making them fall in love with those pieces, talk about it, find the set that they're looking for, right? Kind of figure out where we're at. And then I just kind of at the end to put a bow on everything, I'm like, and the craziest thing about these pans, Mrs. Jones, is they can do something that you could never have dreamed to be possible with pots and pans, right? So for example, that Dutch oven that I showed you earlier, check this out. So again, what I recommend, have you ever cooked with an Instant Pot? You're like, yeah, I've cooked with an Instant Pot. Essentially, when you buy this set of pans today, Mrs. Jones, you get 9 Instant Pots. It's pretty slick, right? So for example, though, you take your chuck roast, preheat the pan, sear it for 2 minutes, flip it, sear it for 2 minutes, right? Get a nice char on there. Then add your bone broth, your potatoes, your carrots, whatever you want. Put the lid on, don't peek. 45 to 55 minutes. I usually recommend at about 35 to 40 minutes you put your meat thermometer in there, figure out what it is, because everybody likes their roast done a little differently, right? So then once you take that, you can do your potatoes over here with your 3-quart saucepan. You can do potatoes, your rosemary, your garlic, your thyme, right? Then you can put the basket in, put the green beans in here, right? Once you put the lid on, that same process where everything kind of locks in, so the garlic, the thyme kind of infuses into the green beans. I'm sorry if you're hungry, Mrs. Jones. Thank God we're at the fair, right? So what's crazy, though, about these pans, while you're doing your chuck roast here and you're doing your potatoes and your green beans here, you can literally do all of it on one burner in 45 to 55 minutes. And every single time they're like, shut the fuck up. What? Really? Like, yeah, so you literally, and then I take out the cookware guide. It's super important to have the cookware guide. And get the new cookware guide, by the way. It's just way more visually It's so much better visually. You flip to towards the back of the book, and literally, you get this cookware guide that I mentioned earlier, and it literally teaches you how to stack cook. Now, this is not something you're going to do on a random Tuesday. Maybe it is because you just want to try something new, right? But like when you think about the occasions like Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter, where you have all of the burners going, right? The idea is that you can do, oh, I forgot the cranberry sauce. I'm just going to put the cranberry sauce right on top, right, and melt that down. Right? Ah, I forgot to do an extra little thing of carrots or whatever it is. You can literally do all of that on one burner, right? And then that's usually where I'm like, and by the way, too, a lot of people ask, because this is a lot of pots and pans, like, how the hell do you store all these? They're all stackable. So I take a pot, I flip it over and on top of each other. And the cool thing is, Mrs. Jones, you can take the biggest set of pots and pans that we sell, and you can put it all into one cupboard, right? And then I use Josh's kitchen as an example, too, where he has all of the pots and pans in his little underneath his thing where it used to be a sink, right? And if you want to hang them, Mrs. Jones, you can also hang them, right? So those are just kind of the bullet points. That's not the whole pitch, but it's a good amount of it. So
I've never used the kitchen craft comparison. Is the set for set, is Cutco cheaper? Like they're like basic set.
The kitchen craft, we're just not allowed to use it because the kitchen craft pricing that we have, that we've been showing, is inaccurate. Oh. So it was a price at one point, right? But it's no longer the price. So essentially, kitchen craft got word of it. And they're like, they sent an email to Cutco, and Cutco like a year ago was like, hey, stop using kitchen craft pricing. So I've stopped using kitchen craft pricing for a while. I just use Salad Master. I don't think you need anything else besides that. It's just bringing awareness that there are other pots and pans companies here. So you're going to find them. They're going to be expensive. They're great. But the difference between me and them is you're just going to pay less because you get me and I make less and you get a better guarantee. And if there's a horse to bet on in 50 years, it's going to be Cutco because, again, like it's been wild to see like over the last like 50 years how many, like there were so many pots and pans companies. There was like 60 of them that did the same thing, and they were all made in the same area of Wisconsin. And over the last like 20, 30 years, they've all been bought out. They've all gone out of business, and there's like 6 left. But the one that is going to be here forever is Cutco, and it's because we don't just sell pots and pans. Like we sell forever knives, we sell forever flatware, we sell forever accessories. We work with businesses to brand their businesses. Like we do way more than just pans, right? So it's just like bringing awareness to that, and people are like, all right, that makes sense. And then also, like, again, now that we have the bakeware, again, it's a bummer that during the State Fair of Texas, like the bakeware is going to go, but it's like utilizing that also. So yeah, so it's just like, it's just being real with people and being like, hey, like I'm just gonna get the cat out of the bag right now because I know you think that there's like I don't want you to walk around the corner and be like, well. And I also use this. I'm like, yeah. So what I just took about 10 minutes to tell you, they're gonna put you through a 90-minute cooking video to tell you, right? Now I don't have any food for you. I'm sorry. I've got some gummies in the back if you want some gummies, but right, I can promise you're gonna love the pans, right? Just as much, if not more, than you love the knives. And I tell my customers like, for the people that do come back that have everything, it's overwhelming how many people that have the pots and pans are like, it is the best thing that you make. Because again, the knives make our life easier, right? The flatware, I joke, makes our food taste better. It doesn't actually make our food taste better, but it just makes you feel fancy when you're eating. But the idea with the pots and pans is like literally the cooking that you already are cooking, which is better than my cooking or could ever dream of cooking, is literally just going to taste better by putting into our pans than the pans you have at home. But you're going to do nothing different. Nothing different at all. You're just going to retain more nutrients. You're going to retain, again, more of the flavor that you're trying to get out. It's like, and then just using more examples where it's like, again, Seth just sent this to me. This is a great thing to be able to show. It's like, yeah, Mrs. Jones, like you can literally do 21 ears of corn stacked vertically with a cup of water in the Dutch oven, right? 20 minutes. Best corn you've ever had. And it's unbelievably yellow when you're done, right? Because you're not, like, the biggest problem people have with corn, right? It's just all about pain points. It's like the biggest problem that people have with corn is you got to freaking boil the water for fucking 35, 40 minutes just to boil the freaking, like the water before you even put the corn in. And by the time you put the corn in, it's just that murky yellow orange color by the time you're done with it. And why do you think we add so much salt, pepper, and butter to corn? It's because all of the flavor is gone in the water. It's the same thing with broccoli. It's the same thing with carrots. Right, so I don't know about you, Mrs. Jones. I spend a lot of money on groceries. And I spend a lot of money on really good groceries. And I spend a lot of money on good groceries because I want my food to taste good. So it's like the problem is, the biggest problem, like, it's crazy how every 2 to 3 years, Americans go to the store and they just literally light $300 on fire. And they're like, this is going to be the set of pans that's going to last me another X amount of this is the one. It's got the new copper core or the new titanium core. It's going to be it. And then every single 2 to 3 years, they're like, son of a gun, the freaking stuff is flaking again already. Or I thought this was going to be it. It's like, imagine Mrs. Jones never going to the store having to replace pots and pans. The crazy thing about it, Mrs. Jones, the pots and pans market in America is 10x the knife market. 10x. And think about how often we go through pots and pans. Like, kind of people just kind of get by with the knives that they've got, right? But it's like, you know, when the stuff starts to flake, you're like, I gotta get rid of it. But what's ironic about it is most people don't know that when you put a coated pan onto a hot surface, it is literally evaporating into our bodies. So I got Teflon on my body. You got Teflon on your bodies. We've all got Teflon on our bodies. But I'm trying to have as less amount of Teflon as possible for the rest of my life. Right? So the great thing about it is, I said earlier, is there's a peace of mind that what you put into your Cutco pots and pans is exactly what you want to get out. So if you're like me, you love butter, I put butter in everything. But if you want to have the option of cooking healthier, right, or the option of, again, eating a little less butter or a little less oil, right, with your foods, you have that option, right? And then it's, again, where I'll show Brian's video of him doing, again, chicken. I think you lightly oiled that chicken, right?
It's just marinade. Yeah.
Just marinade, right? Just marinated the chicken, threw it on there, reverse sear it, right? It's like, I show a video of Seth and I, like, and again, this is, if you take anything from this, it's like, just have a folder of all of the videos, right? Like, I have so many videos of eggs. I've got a video of Seth and I in North Dakota making a steak with no butter, no oil. After 3 minutes, it's a perfect char. And then I slide over, and I'm like, that's the after. Just a beautiful, medium rare, delicious melt in your mouth. And people are like, what the fuck? You can do that in your pans? I'm like, yes. Because it's like, again, I know you guys came kind of towards the end, but what I told them earlier is it's like most people literally have PTSD from stainless steel because everything normally sticks and burns to stainless, right? It's just like how, and I told this again last year, so this 2 years ago, right? I'll say it until I die. It's just like you have to recondition and teach a person how to use them. And once they feel comfortable enough, they're like, I can do what Bert is telling me. I can buy these pans, right? And again, when you're building up the value, it's like, again, like we talked about a couple years ago how you put a cleaver next to a stock pot. I've stopped doing that. I've actually started putting a cleaver next to a griddle because it's such a visual where it's like the cleaver takes up like this much of the griddle. And they're like, I'm like, this is a $250 griddle or a $250 knife. And most people are like, that's going to be a $650 griddle, at least. Right? And the griddle's $314, right? And then they're like thinking about the wok. They're like, Jesus fucking Christ, how much is in the wok? Oh my God, that's got to be like a $1,300 pan, right? So I had a customer that bought a legacy cookware set for me the last Sunday at the fair in Minnesota. And I got to the price comparison. I'm like, so buckle up. She's like, just get to the price, Bert. I'm like, I gotta kind of let you know that why these are the most expensive things that we make, right? And I get to the price, and she goes, wow, I thought these were going to be $10,000. Because they were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, all right. And they left, and then they came back, and they ended up adding on an extra $1,000 worth of random stuff on top of the legacy cookware set that they bought, and I gave them a turn and serve and a 4-inch paring knife for free. Right? It's just like, again, you don't have to, it's just like you don't have to give away the boat because they're buying it from such an emotional place while also they're just like, this just makes so much sense to have. Because, again, if you're able to dive into the pain point that most people have where it's like literally you light money on fire every 2 to 3 years and buy a $200 to $300 set of pans and they're like, yep, I've done that about every 2 to 3 years the last 20 years of my life. And every time I buy them, I'm disappointed. Right? It's just like I tell my customers, and you guys are the same way, like share with your customers. Like I travel with my pans, right? I bring a skillet, a 3-quart stock pot, and a 12-inch fry pan everywhere I go because I love pasta, I love eggs, and I love meat. I bring those 3 pans because those are the 3 that I use all the time, right? And so they're like, yeah, wow. And I'm like, I just hate having, I tell a story that I actually was at. It was for Luciano's birthday party this year. We went to this Airbnb, and it took me like 23 minutes to make 10 eggs. It was the most frustrating thing ever. It was this crappy, freaking 13-inch black coated, terrible pan. And it was just disgusting.
We all have cancer.
We for sure do. It was terrible. I was like, God, this is disgusting. But it took forever. So I just like, I paint that picture. I'm like, I can literally do 11 to 12 or 9 to 10 eggs in my skillet in like 7 minutes. And it's so fast because it just cooks so well, right? So it's like if you can bring efficiency and practicality and logic with emotion, tying all of that into, again, using videos. And it's like the big thing about videos, and I, again, like if you guys watch the 30-minute video that I put up on the Texoma group me, like watch that, because that's my whole pitch start to finish. Like all of it is kind of like in order. It's like the idea behind that is, again, how can you work a person through, I don't really know where I was going with that. What was
With
it?
videos?
Videos, yes, sorry, thank you. It's like when you think about how people buy cookware at the home shows, they are sitting and watching visuals. So it's so important. Like you are going to sell cookware through videos on your phone. So don't just have 2 videos. Don't just have eggs, a fry pan. Like you have to have more examples. So I was telling them that like if you guys, like even if you don't eat them, we just made Rice Krispie treats in the wok. And like you literally see the frickin' marshmallows sliding around a stainless steel pan. They're like, what the hell is happening? And then you just show how fast they melt, right? And then you put the Rice Krispies in. It's like, they're like, holy shit, I do that, right? And all of a sudden this wok that just seems so foreign to them, it's like, yeah, you're going to use this. If you bake, you'll use this, right? And it's just like, again, Luke Mills put this in the group me like forever ago. It was just stir fry, right, in the fry pan. Right? It's just like a bunch of chicken in there, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I do chicken, right? It's like, yeah, do you do hamburger, right? And it's just like showing pancakes, right? It's like 4 pancakes that are perfectly golden brown that work well, right? I also love Brian's. Again, Brian's video is great. Again, like you probably heard, again, for those of you that are watching the recording that didn't get the first half of this, like the setting proper expectations, like letting things know that they will stick and burn. Like I'm not afraid to show Brian's videos of bacon and Brian's videos of eggs caked on the pan. I'm not scared at all. I would rather a customer know that that's probably going to happen to them than them getting them and be like, what the hell? Bert said that things aren't going to stick and burn like most stainless steel. I'm like, no, you're a human. And I said earlier to these guys, it's like, it's ironic how we buy non-stick pans and things still stick. It's like, oh, we're sold this bill of goods that you're going to buy a non-stick pan and nothing sticks and burns. It's like, not every, it's food. Like things are going to stick and burn. So it's like if you can show them, it's like, yeah, so like for example, when you're cooking with stainless steel, with high heat and moisture, welcome to, I call it the rainbow effect. It's going to happen on your pans and it's random. It doesn't make any sense on how it picks a certain day where it just decides to be a rainbow. But the cool thing about it, if you ever get the rainbow effect on your pans, have you ever heard of Barkeeper's Friend? You can literally take it off in 2 minutes. And it's like a brand new pan. It's unreal how well it works. So it doesn't matter how bad the pan looks. Like for example, I have a buddy of mine in college, this is what his pan looked like. He just like disregarded the bottom of the pan for like 2 years and then said, finally, I'm going to clean it. A little bit of Barkeeper's Friend. It's like a brand new pan, right? I used Josh's example. Like there was a customer that literally forgot spaghetti sauce on her pan for an hour, almost burned her damn house to the ground, right? Torched it. If you did that to your nonstick pan, you know what you'd do. You'd toss it. That's a pan you can't clean, right? You wouldn't have a pan. It's just like, all right, well, son of a gun, I do not have a 3-quart saucepan anymore, right? A little bit of Barkeeper's Friend, a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of leaven. Now, by the way, also setting proper expectations with steel wool. Just so you guys know, you do not have to use steel wool. If you use Barkeeper's Friend, you can literally take paper towel and you will clean it and it will never get a scratch mark. Okay, now I tell my customers, I love steel wool because I'm like, it's so easy. Just know though, it's going to give your pots and pans a brushed finish. That's it, right? It's amazing. I like it because of convenience, but it's never going to hurt your pan, right? So Seth will tell you again during his role play later, it's like if you ever scratch the pan, it's a patina scratch, right? All that is surface level. So I was telling these guys earlier about like stainless steel. We learned this from one of the guys that used to sell Royal Prestige, very good friends of ours that's across from us at the North Dakota State Fair. And we actually asked him this question because we told him about some pans that had burned. And he was like, yeah, you don't ever have to use steel wool. And we're like, okay. And then we got on the conversation about stainless and why things stick and burn to stainless. And he was like, yeah, the reason why things stick and burn to stainless steel is not because of the stainless steel. It's actually what happens with 18.6, 8, or 10 grade stainless is microscopically it's porous. So what that means is as you cook over time, the leftover food particles literally get stuck in the stainless steel. So when you have things stick and burn, it's not sticking to the stainless, it's sticking to the food that's left over in the stainless. So why surgical grade is so great is that you could use a metal utensil for 1,000 years and there's no way for food to get in there, ever, right? Ever. So like like if you want to give the example of why we put titanium rods into our bodies to help our bodies heal, is that when you take the titanium rod out, your body cannot adhere to titanium. So it's the same thing with surgical grade steel, right? So the reason why we use surgical grade steel is you can use metal utensils, you can cook on how you want it, whenever you want it, right? And it will never stick and burn long term to the actual food that's in the pan, right? It will always just be perfect on top, right? So there's a lot of, again, peace of mind. I use the word peace of mind a lot, that you can cook with these for the next 100 years. And we have people that come up to us over and over. They've had their pans for 50, 60, 70 years. They've got their grandma's set. The only thing that they've had problems with is the handles break, but the pans cook the exact same way as they cooked 50 years ago because, again, of how the construction and how it's made, right? So, again, just teaching through examples, showing them great examples of really delicious food, right, and really good images of, like, how great it looks. And, again, like, I kind of joke. I say, yeah, I apologize for making you hungry, but thank God we're at the fair. You can go eat whatever you want later, right? But yeah, so that kind of, again, that's a big bow on a lot of things. But listen to the whole pitch from start to finish in the group me, because that's just kind of like more organized, not just all over the place like this message.